Thank you for tuning in tonight to the Fulton Bridge Baptist Church Wednesday night service. It's certainly not what we had anticipated doing tonight. I certainly had not even anticipated being up here talking to you. We had planned to have services tonight in the sanctuary, as well as the RAs and GAs and youth having classes inside the building. But due to some unexpected emerging circumstances, it was determined that meeting inside tonight might not be wise. Therefore, all the services for tonight have been canceled except for the social media broadcast. The pastors and the deacons appreciate your prayers and concerns and tolerance with us as we attempt to react in a manner that will keep our church and church family as safe as possible. We ask that each of you pray for our pastor and his family tonight. They have recently been touched by the coronavirus. They're quarantined at this time as his wife has tested positive and is suffering the symptoms. With many of the churches in our neighboring cities and communities experiencing this uptick in the coronavirus COVID cases, the pastor and the deacons have decided that we must be especially vigilant now in light of the things that seem to be happening and resulting then in us calling off all of the activities tonight except this broadcast. Many hours have been spent trying to develop a feasible plan for accommodating more persons in our sanctuary, as well as providing a somewhat modified approach to our Sunday school. A plan was approved which was intended for implementation this coming Sunday. However, on Monday of this week, there were developments, and some of the developments are at least three of our church members have tested positive for COVID, and that raised questions about whether the plan could or should be implemented this quickly. The situation is being monitored very closely as to where we are going to be able to, what we will be able to do, and we'll keep you informed where we are on these arrangements. We will attempt to try to keep the church fully informed of this. So after explaining why I'm here tonight and the circumstances leading up to it, we will attempt to have just a short devotion tonight. I thought it kind of appropriate, talking about the things that we are doing now and attempting to make plans, to talk just a little bit about what if. Thought about that when I think about at home. A lot of the times when my wife and I are discussing things and trying to make a decision, and we come up with a decision, and a little bit down the road, if it didn't come out just like we wanted it, we'll say, what if we did it this way? Or what if we did it that way? That's always something that comes up with us. And we have to decide and realize that we cannot change it. What we've done cannot be changed. In this little devotion, it started out with decisions, decisions, decisions. Life is full of them. Career, marriage, family, a new car, a different house. The list is endless. Most choices are handled routinely, but the big life-altering decisions, after they've been made, sometimes leave us with a troublesome thought of what if? What if I had done it differently? Let me just read a few verses in Proverbs. It's Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. It says, "My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Paul Tournier tells of a visit from a dear friend who was having a great deal of turmoil. He had made a life-changing decision, and all the time that he thought it was in God's will. But with subsequent events, he started having real serious thoughts about whether he had made a mistake or not. So each morning, Dr. Tournier and his friend read the Bible and prayed together. One day they came to the story of Lot's wife, who was turned into a pillar of salt because she looked back. Suddenly, the distressed man said, with a burst of insight, he said, "I'm like Lot's wife. My life is petrified because I keep looking back. I turn that problem over and over and over uselessly without ever discovering whether I did right or not." We all probably do things like that. If we have prayerfully sought God's will, we must not keep second-guessing our decision. We are assured that God works everything out for his own ends, and that includes all of the what-ifs that we can think about. Just a recent thing, a personal happening, is my wife was talking about possibly buying my granddaughter's car that she's getting rid of. And said, "No, I don't want to do that." And then probably 2 or 3 weeks later, after my granddaughter had sold the car, she said, "I should have bought that. What if I'd have bought that? It'd been much better." And I said, "Well, we can't look back. We can't change it. Looking back only brings up the memory again." So we all have these what ifs. Changing gear just a little bit, we've gone through an election. And in this election, roughly half the people seem happy, and half the people are unhappy. Now the happy side says, "Now I will change things to the way I want them. I'll show them." And the unhappy side says, "Now I will oppose everything they do, just like they did us. I'll get even with them." So what I want to talk about here is the high cost of getting even. We'll look in the scriptures to Esther chapter 7, verses 9 and 10. "And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman has made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. The king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified." A group of people were touring Yellowstone National Park, and they were watching this grizzly bear eating some food that had been put out by the attendants. Suddenly a little skunk came on the scene, run right up where the bear was and started eating, stealing some of the rations. And the sightseers said that, the people at the park had told them every animal in the park is afraid of that big grizzly bear. And they said, why is it that this little skunk dared to even get close enough to bother him? And the attendant replied, said, the bear is disturbed by it. He's disturbed by that skunk, but he knows the high cost of getting even. Any of you that grew up on a farm like me can really understand that. If you ever had a bunch of old hound dogs, whatever, around the house, chances are sometime one of those hound dogs made the mistake of getting too close and trying to catch a skunk. And when it comes home, smells awful. You can't get the smell away. So you probably understand what I'm talking about here. The scripture lesson tells a sad story of Haman, who is an important official in the Persian government. He was angry because Mordecai had refused to bow to him. And he determined to gain revenge by having his God-fearing Jew hanged and the entire Hebrew nation exterminated. But the Lord intervened. In the two verses I read earlier is, I guess you would say, Haman was trying to make out with the king's wife, and of course he caught him, and he's going to get rid of Haman. Bringing this about the execution in the gallows that he had prepared for his enemy was really a payback for him. Yes, Haman paid the high cost of getting even. The Bible declares, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." And the person whose heart is filled with hatred will learn that he can't harbor thoughts of retaliation without suffering for it. Such an attitude of life will mar one's personality, impair one's physical health, and disrupt his fellowship with God. In many ways, he will discover the high cost of getting even. I read something somewhere and just jotted it down, talking about hate. Hate, like acid, does more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than it does to the object on which it is poured. Very true. And the final thought is, you will never get ahead of someone as long as you're trying to get even with him. Again, thank you for visiting our website and our service tonight, and may God bless you.